If you've just finished resource loading your program, you're looking at a histogram with peaks you cannot staff and valleys where half your crew sits idle. In this video, I'll take you through leveling and smoothing inside P6 itself, every menu, every checkbox, and exactly where to click. Here's the plan. First, we confirm your availability figures are real under Enterprise Resources. Then we read the histogram in the Activities window. We save a copy before touching anything. We run leveling from Tools, Level Resources. Then I'll show you the single checkbox that turns leveling into smoothing. We check what actually moved, and we finish with the 4 mistakes I see most often. Step 1. Check your availability. Go to the Enterprise menu and choose Resources. In the top table, click the resource you're interested in. Then in the bottom pane, select the Units and Prices tab. The column you care about is max units per time. This and only this is the availability that leveling works against. Notice default units per time sitting next to it. That field only pre-fills new assignments. It is not capacity, and it draws nothing on your histogram. And don't enter a single flat number. Add a row for each mobilization step. In this example, steel fixtures start at 400 units a day in June, climb to 3,000 by October when every work front is open, then come back down as structures close out. That's what real availability looks like. One number for the whole job will either flag over-allocation that isn't real, or hide over-allocation that is. Step 2. Read the histogram. Open the Activities window. At the bottom, choose Resource Usage Profile. Right-click inside the profile to open its options. Go to the Data tab, and make sure you're plotting units, not cost. If you leave it on cost, you'll be looking at your material spend, not your manpower. Also take Display Activities for selected. Otherwise, the profile ignores whatever you've highlighted in the table above. Here's what you're looking at. The bars are demand, how many people the schedule asks for in each period. The dashed line is availability, taken from max units per time. Anything above that line is a month you can on staff. But look at the valleys too. A curve that swings from 30 up to 160 and back down is not a plan. It's a wish. Those peaks have a real price. You mobilize and demobilize repeatedly. Visas, flights, inductions, every time. Your gangs sit idle in the valleys, still on the payroll. Accommodation and transport get sized for a peak you hit twice in 2 years. And supervision ratios collapse exactly when the site is busiest. Step 3. Save a copy first. This one is not optional. Go to the Projects window, right-click your project. Choose Copy, then Paste. Name the copy clearly. On leveling changes dates across your whole program, and without the original sitting next to it, you have no way to explain what moved or why. And a baseline on its own is not enough. You want the unleveled dates themselves. Then press F9 and schedule. Check you have no negative float, and clear out any hard constraints you find. Leveling a schedule that's already broken doesn't fix the break. It just buries it under a layer of delay you can't interpret. Step 4. Resource leveling. Open the Tools menu. You'll see Schedule at the top, with F9 next to it. Directly below that is Level Resources, with the shortcut Shift F9. Notice they're separate operations. Scheduling calculates dates from your logic. Leveling then pushes those dates around based on who's available. Click Level Resources. Here's the dialog. Consider assignments in other projects. Tick this if your crews are shared across a portfolio, because otherwise P6 pretends the whole workforce is yours alone. Preserve scheduled early and late dates. Level all resources, or untick it and pick specific ones. And leave automatically level resources when scheduling switched off while you're experimenting, or you'll never know which change caused what. Now this is the one worth the whole video. Level resources only within activity total float. Leave it unticked, and you get true leveling. Activities can move beyond their float, and your finish date can extend. Tick it, and P6 performs what the rest of the industry calls smoothing. Work only shuffles inside the float it already has, and the end date is protected. There is no separate button labeled smoothing anywhere in P6. This checkbox is it, which is exactly why so many players use the two words interchangeably without realizing they're running two different operations. Down here you've got leveling priorities. This decides who gets the crew when two activities wanted at once. You can set an activity leveling priority per activity, where a lower number wins, or sort by total float, early start, or duration. If you leave this alone, P6 chooses for you, and the result tends to look arbitrary and be very hard to defend when somebody asks why that particular activity slipped. And max percent to overallocate resources. This lets P6 breach the availability line slightly rather than delay an activity. Genuinely useful, where a few hours of overtime is cheaper than a slip, but keep it modest. Set it to 25%, and you've quietly given yourself a schedule that only works if everybody does unlimited overtime. So here's the result. Every bar now sits at or below the availability line. Nothing exceeds what you can actually supply. But look at the right-hand side. Those orange bars are work that's been pushed past the original finish date. That's the trade you just made. You bought a deliverable staffing plan, and you paid for it with time. Leveling rewrites your critical path. Total float drops, sometimes to 0, on activities that had plenty before. The critical route can change completely, and it's worth separating two ideas here. Logic critical means an activity is waiting on a predecessor, and you fix that by changing sequence or duration. Resource critical means it's waiting on a crew, and no amount of resequencing will help. You fix that by adding capacity. Step 5. Resource smoothing. Smoothing lives in exactly the same dialogue. Take level resources only within activity total float and click level. Now the governing constraint is your finish date rather than your crew size. Activities move only within their free or total float. The critical path is never touched because by definition there's no float there to use. Peaks get trimmed, but they may not be fully resolved. Here's the outcome. The curve is noticeably flatter. Peaks have come down. Valleys have filled in from the float either side, and the last bar lands exactly where it did before. The end date hasn't moved a single day. If your handover is contractual, this is the tool you reach for. But be realistic about what smoothing can do. If there isn't enough float, the peak survives. Near the critical path, there's nothing to move at all, so you can finish with a flatter, but still overallocated, histogram. And at that point, the choice becomes a genuine one. Add resources, or accept a longer program. The software has done everything it can for you. Side by side then, the checkbox, unticked versus ticked, governing constraint, resource availability versus the project end date. Hello, leveling can exceed it, smoothing works within it only, finish date may extend versus never moves, critical path can change versus unchanged, and overallocation, leveling resolves it fully, smoothing only partially. Which means the decision comes down to one question. Which is truly fixed? The date or the crew? Fixed date with flexible resources. Smooth, then price the peak and go and get the men. Fixed resources with a flexible date. Level, then justify the extension. And if both are genuinely fixed, neither tool will save you. That's a commercial conversation, not a scheduling one. Step 6. Check what moved. Go to View, then Columns. From Available Options, add Leveling Delay, and add Total Float if it isn't already there. Move them across to selected options and click OK. Now sort by Leveling Delay, largest first. And there it is. Leveling Delay shows you exactly how many days each activity was pushed. Here the raft slab and the columns each took 14 days. Now, one technical point that catches a lot of people out. That delay is not a relationship. P6 stores it separately from your logic. Reschedule without leveling and it simply vanishes, which means the dates are real, but the reason for them is completely invisible to anyone reading your program. So always issue a note stating that the schedule is resource leveled. 6 checks before you circulate anything. How far did the finish date move? And can you defend it? Has the critical path changed routes? Which activities were delayed? And by how much? Does the histogram now sit under the line? Have any contractual milestones been breached? And compare against that unleveled copy, activity by activity. If you can't explain why a given activity moved, you're not ready to issue it. And be realistic about acceptance. Most contracts require the baseline to show the contractual completion date. A level program that finishes 3 months late is not a submission, it's an argument. Common practice is to submit unleveled and keep the leveled version for internal control, or level first, then compress with additional resources until the date comes back and use that difference to justify what you're asking for. Step 7. 4 mistakes. Leveling against fictional availability. Max units per time left at the software default. One flat number applied to every trade, as if steel fixtures and roller operators come from the same pool. Material and cost resources included in the run, where availability is a meaningless concept anyway. Garbage availability produces a garbage level program, and it produces it very confidently, which is what makes it dangerous. Leveling everything at once. Untick level all resources and pick one trade. Read the result, then move to the next. A single blow will run hides which resource actually drove the delay and leaves you with a program you cannot explain. It takes longer, but you finish knowing precisely which trade is your binding constraint. And that is genuinely useful information. Number 3. No saved copy. I've said it already, but it's the one people skip. Number 4. Constraints everywhere. Hard constraints block leveling from doing its job. So instead of a sensible delay, you get negative float and a program reporting it's late for reasons that have nothing to do with resources. Clean the constraints out first, then level. Vote. 3 sentences to take away. Level when resources are the constraint and accept that the date can move. Smooth when the date is the constraint and use only the float you already have. And neither is worth running until your availability figures are real. Remember, the histogram is not the deliverable. The staffing decision behind it is the deliverable. If that was useful, subscribe. I cover planning and project controls, mostly P6 and FIDIC. And if you'd like a full video on setting max units per time properly, trade by trade, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.